think it would be good to just start with kind of a general or broad definition of what boundaries are, because I think some people have a misunderstanding of what they are. And I didn't necessarily Google this or have like a textbook definition, but for me, when I think about boundaries, I think it has a two-step process. One is that you first have to identify what your boundaries are for yourself, right? Because you have to know where those boundaries are with different relationships, and with different relationships, you will have different boundaries. So there's not like one blanket boundary that applies to everybody. But then the second part is you have to be able to clearly communicate your needs and expectations to the other person or to the other people. And so a boundary is any time that you identify a need within yourself and communicate it clearly to the other person. Is there
Yeah.
anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, boundaries are the awareness of where I end and where the other person begins. And so, really having an awareness of whatever might be intrusive on either personal space, time, energy, effort, what I have to give or receive. It's just kind of that outline of where do I end, where does the other person begin, where do we interact, and how safe do I feel in that interaction. I think that's where a lot of boundaries get crossed is our nervous system reacts and we shut down and we get activated and we're not even sure why, but that's usually when a boundary is crossed. And, you know, I think I did a lot of work with adolescents when I used to work in treatment, and just going through the different types of boundaries that, you know, you have boundaries with your words and boundaries with physical touch and boundaries with, you know, the extension of what you're giving or receiving between another person, how much time, you know, you're spending with another person. There's so many different ways. Boundaries are not just I think a lot of times people think like personal space, right? Like you crossed my boundary, but it's so much more than that. And especially in relationships, there's just a lot of different ways that boundaries can trigger, you know, trauma responses and attachment wounds, and just kind of really get intertwined. And, you know, it's also a very common thing that's thrown around, you know, like, especially with the Instagram culture, like people talking boundaries, you know, it's just kind of used as a blanket statement. So